Today, we're going to take a look at the prices of food in Nunavut and figure out why it's so damn high. For those who don't know, this is Nunavut. It's a province in Canada. It's very high up north, so it's usually cold year-round. There are an estimated 40,721 residents living in Nunavut right now. As you can imagine, it's pretty hard to get anything delivered up there. All the prices shown in this video are in Canadian dollars. I'll be putting the prices in USD in the subtitles.
Come shopping with us in Iqaluit, Nunavut. $26 for a case of pop. Spray $$. $14 for PB. Whoa, that price for cheese was $71 for dog treats. Yikes for one frozen pizza. Ouch the price for frozen fruit. $12 for mayo. $17 for pickles. Zip, no thank you, for $1.89 for a can of soup. No milk today. Oreos for $9.19. $33 for coffee.
Those are the real prices at a typical store in Nunavut. They don't have many choices for where to shop for groceries up there. So that's the price range no matter which store you visit in Nunavut. There isn't a season when the prices would be more normal. Let's hear this lady explain her experience of growing up in Nunavut.
Growing up in the Arctic, my household would spend $3,000 every 2 weeks on groceries. Me and my brother were young kids, but we had a household of 6, and this was like 10 years ago, so groceries have only gotten more expensive since then. Given how expensive groceries are in the north, it's crazy to me how people tell us not to hunt. We're doing what we can to survive and be self-sustaining. These are really awesome statistics of how much of the community is still consuming meat and fish that we hunt ourselves. 78% of the meat and fish consumed in the Beaufort Delta, which is where I'm from, is what we hunt and fish ourselves. And some communities are as high as 97%.
$3,000 for groceries every 2 weeks for a family of 6, and that's the price 10 years ago. It adds up to about $72,000 per year for just the groceries. To put that into perspective, if you want to take home $72,000 after taxes in Ontario, Canada's most populated province, you would have to make $104,000 per year. Only about 1 in 5 tax-paying Canadians take home more than $100,000 per year. There are underemployed or unemployed people in Canada, by the way. There was a time when 6 figures used to feel like a lot, but even if you make a low 6-figure in Nunavut, you would have trouble surviving. This is why so many residents in Nunavut actually substitute a lot of their calorie intake from animals they hunted themselves, so they don't have to rely on the grocery stores to feed their family. I have to mute part of this video because it has copyrighted music over it.
Life in Iqaluit, Nunavut Part 2, Grocery Edition.
That's $19.99 for orange juice, $21.99 for ice cream. She only grabbed 5 items and it cost her $75. That's roughly $54 USD. Everything here can probably feed herself for only 2 to 3 days. It's not very nutritious, as you can see.
Grocery prices in Iqaluit, Nunavut, coffee and pop edition.
So that's $16.39 for coffee, $32.49 for another coffee, $30.39 for 12 cans of Mountain Dew, $30.99 for 12 cans of Dr. Pepper, Canada Dry, 12 cans, $30.99. Everything is super expensive. Coca-Cola is cheaper, 12 cans for $22.99. $5.49 for a box of granola bars. That's 2 times the normal price. $3.89 for apple juice. Usually they sell it as a bundle of 6. $2 for 6 juice boxes. That's $3.89 for 1 box, and it's full of sugar. Very unhealthy for you. $6.39 for toothpaste. It's around $1 for an 80ml tube in dollar store, but there are more expensive brands for roughly the same price at around $6. Cheerios for $10.39. Did you know that cereals are not actually healthy at all, despite what they all promise on the boxes? It's made of mostly sugar, expensive, and unhealthy. $5.29 for 12 eggs. This isn't actually too different in prices. I've seen 12 eggs for that price in other parts of Canada. Some organic eggs can be more expensive, around $7. Asparagus, $16.99 per kilo. Nunavut doesn't receive much sunlight, so it's hard to grow anything up there. All their fruits and vegetables have to be shipped from other parts of Canada, where there are no roads and the weather can make the journey dangerous. One saving grace about all this is that the Canadian government does provide subsidies for remote communities in Canada. The Nutrition North Canada subsidy is supposed to reduce the high cost of food in northern and remote communities. These communities are located in Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, some parts of Ontario, Quebec, and Labrador. So the prices you've seen are with the subsidies. It would have been much more expensive before the subsidy. You can see another number up here on the price tag. Before the subsidy, the asparagus was $20.76 per kilogram. After the subsidy, it's $16.99 per kilogram. Despite the high prices, there are still people living in Nunavut. Some stay because it's the land of their ancestors. They've been living in Nunavut for generations. It may be hard for them to say goodbye to the place that their ancestors have been guarding for so long. Plus, they will have to say goodbye to their community and extended families who, for the most part, refuse to leave. Younger generations are more willing to move down to other provinces for better job opportunities, but the older generations aren't as willing. Another problem this community faced recently is Amazon's crackdown on the postal code loophole. It's one of those things that people living in specific parts of Nunavut know about, but nobody talks about it. In this video, the host explained that if you want to buy 2 cans of soup on Amazon, the shipping cost will be $56.94 to ship to Iqaluit, Nunavut, a city with a population of 7,470 people. Obviously, that is horrible. The shipping is 10 times more than the cost of the soups. So residents in Iqaluit discovered that if they put down a postal code that doesn't exist, just one number away from their real address, they can get their shipping for free if they have Amazon Prime, or at least shipping for a fraction of the price if they don't have Amazon Prime. Somebody from Canada Post will correct the mistake in the postal code to get the shipment to the right person. The address on the package is correct. Only the postal code is wrong, so it's not impossible to get the package to the right place. Somebody just has to realize that one letter was off and correct that. Canada Post may be the one footing the bill all this time, since Amazon does not provide the infrastructures to deliver the package that up north. Canada Post has had its own. They need to have their employees manually correct the mistakes. It clogs up the system and costs the company more money. So now the package, instead of being delivered, will be returned to sender. This has actually been the rule for a long time, but they haven't been enforcing it up until recently. This is bad news for the community, who relied on Amazon to get things they otherwise have to pay much more for. This is how they are able to survive with such high prices in the grocery stores. Many residents in Nunavut also have higher wages to compensate for the higher cost of living. But Amazon was a lifeline for a lot of them who don't necessarily get paid as much as they need, but still are able to remain in the province thanks to Amazon services. Unfortunately, they can no longer count on this loophole. Their budget is now much tighter. I don't have to mute this one because it has no copyrighted music over it. Again, outrageous prices. Take a look.
The prices are to pay. Look at the brown sugar and the heart of the rock, $17.69, $39.39 for this harvest bacon, $60.49 for the buffalo chicken strips. That big there, over 60 bucks. Box of chicken noodle soup, $9.59.
$18.29 for pizza, $17.19 for tomato per kilogram, $23.39 for another type of tomato. Even water is expensive. $56.96 for Tide Pods.
Come shop with me at North Mart in Iqaluit, Nunavut. Some products are subsidized, such as fruits and vegetables, milk and eggs, but not all products are, as you can see. Keep in mind, Iqaluit is a gateway city to the more remote communities in Nunavut. So the prices here are actually not too bad compared to the prices you would see in other areas of Nunavut.
Another reason why prices in Nunavut are so outrageous is that Canada in general has a higher cost of living compared to the US.
I'm going to quickly explain why Canadians pay a lot more for things than our friends in the US. And this screenshot quickly shows the concept that I'm going to explain to you all. In Canada, we basically have 3 main carriers that then own all the other subsidiaries that you see beneath here. For comparison, there's over 30 in the US. Between Bell, TELUS, Rogers, and Shaw, they control 91% of the market. It's an economic concept called an oligopoly. That's where there is a limited amount of competition and the whole market is shared by a small number of producers. And it applies to almost every facet in every industry in Canada, including banking. These are the big banks that we have in Canada: Bank of Montreal, Scotiabank, CIBC, RBC, TD, and then there's also Desjardins or National Bank. Very, very few options. By contrast, in the US, there's over 72,000 commercial bank branches with over 4,200 FDIC insured commercial banking institutions. That's 4,230 more than what we have in Canada. It applies to grocery stores as well. For example, Loblaws and Shoppers Drug Mart dominate almost 1/3 of the total market share of retailers in Canada. Correction, food retailers. And again, there's mainly 5 retailers that dominate Canada's grocery sale. And it's actually much worse for airlines. It's actually called a duopoly, where there's 2 main players, Air Canada and WestJet. And this isn't a new concept. It's been written about a lot over the years. I'm just bringing it to light. I'm only bringing it to light because of how expensive everything has gotten. And a lot of it actually has to do with the market dynamics here in Canada, with things being primarily an oligopoly or a duopoly.
The oligopoly of almost every industry in Canada is the reason why prices are higher, because there is less competition to drive the price down. When there is competition, it's good for the consumers because companies would try to price their products a bit cheaper to entice customers to shop there instead. But because there isn't that much competition in Canada, the oligarchs of the industry can't afford to keep the price high, knowing consumers have no choice but to shop from them. It's actually not that hard to prevent monopolies or oligopolies from forming within a country. The government would have to be the ones intervening to prevent companies from buying up each other and becoming too large. But the regulation for that doesn't really exist in Canada. Instead, the Canadian government encouraged it. Canada has a lot less population compared to the US. In order to stand a chance to compete with the neighbor downstairs, monopolies and oligopolies were allowed to consolidate power for Canadian companies, so Canadian companies don't get swamped by American ones. It's true that a country can prevent foreign companies from taking up too much share of the market within a country by increasing taxes, for instance, but that would hurt Canadian exports as well. America would likely hit Canada with the same import tax. It's a tricky situation that ultimately resulted in Canadians being the ones to take the hits, with the ones in the north being hit harder. We all know inflation has been especially crazy these past several years. But after you've seen the prices in Nunavut, Canada, how do you feel about the prices at your local grocery stores? Now, I'm not saying that you should be more grateful food companies aren't more greedy, but it's a stark contrast. It's like we're living in different eras. The prices are shocking, yes, but those may be what we'll see in the grocery stores in the future, with inflation pushing the prices up every year. Nunavut is just living a couple of decades ahead of us.